Reason to boycott Amazon number 2. It hates competition. Part 1. The background. Yes, Amazon has done so many anti-competitive things over the years that it takes 2 posts or 2 videos to go through them all. In fact, Amazon has been attempting to suppress competition ever since it was a wee little book-selling website in a cute little newborn thing called the internet. So, did you know that you are paying higher prices for all kinds of consumer goods, like eye drops, because Amazon.com exists? Doesn't matter whether you love Amazon and give it as much money as possible through your Prime membership, or whether you haven't purchased anything from Amazon in years. Amazon is still able to raise your prices. How? Why? Well, the why part is easy. Amazon doesn't just hate unions, it hates competition in all forms. Well, actually, that's why it hates unions, because unions help ensure that capitalism works the way it's supposed to. Companies are supposed to compete for workers the way they are supposed to compete for your business. Amazon doesn't want to do that. No highly successful capitalist corporation does. That's how they get to be highly successful capitalist corporations. They do everything in their power to avoid, crush, or kill competition. Peter Thiel, renowned evil capitalist and friend of the Antichrist, even gave a speech on how competition is for losers. Thiel is right, and it's obvious even from a distance. It's obvious to everyone, that is, but the American government. You see, way back in the dim mists of time, before many of you were even born, a man named Jimmy Carter was president. Everything sucked when Jimmy Carter was president, and everyone knew it. Jimmy Carter knew it. Voters knew it. So, Jimmy Carter started trying to appease the people who were yelling at him that everything sucked. And he tried to appease them by doing things his critics told him he should do. Turned out those critics sucked too. They sucked big time. But they didn't know that at the time. Nobody knew that at the time. So, one of the things his critics told him to do was stop this business of antitrust enforcement against gigantic companies for the crime of being so gigantic that they plowed everything over in their wake and became monopolies. Carter's critics had a theory that these companies wouldn't be so gigantic and monopolistic unless everyone loved them so very, very much. Because everyone loves gigantic corporations. These critics believed capitalism farts rainbows from its butt. They did not understand that these corporations became gigantic because they were run by ruthless mofos. The same kind of mofos that became known as robber barons or that precipitated the Great Depression. Because no, these fellows believed capitalism is a unicorn that farts rainbows everywhere it goes. Business billionaires know that's not the case. Theorists don't. So, government, being full of theorists, starting with Jimmy Carter, fell for the rainbow farting theory and stopped enforcing antitrust laws against Gigantosaurus Rex corporations, unless it was so fucking obvious that everyone hated them that it was impossible to ignore. So for a long time, the only corporate Gigantosaurus Rex the government went after was Microsoft in the 1990s, because truly everyone hated Microsoft and Bill Gates. So what the hell does all this have to do with you and Amazon and the fact that Amazon is merely screwing you over in ways that you don't even realize because they are deliberately hidden from you? Well, we'll start with the boringly obvious yet studiously overlooked fact that when you pretend that in the business world giant predators with tiny arms are everyone's friend, it's a real good enticement for people with the personalities of giant predators with little tiny arms to rush into business to become Gigantosaurus rexes. Yes, people with all the lovely attributes of a prehistoric monster rushed into business. By the way, the movie Wall Street from the 1980s, I believe, was an early examination of this monsters rushing into business phenomenon. Anyway, Jeff Bezos started Amazon with the deliberate intention of voraciously gobbling through every last shred of human decency in his business while declaring that everything his business did smelled like unicorn rainbow farts. That included, of course, engaging in every attempt to prevent competition to Amazon that he and his minions could think of, and they could think of a lot. This worked. It worked because Bezos knew the laws. Bezos knew how the system was skewed. He knew everything in government and associated propaganda was specifically rigged to make sure people were told that his shit didn't stink. So, people who promote not enforcing antitrust laws against Gigantosaurus corporations are actually anti-capitalist. Because everyone who hasn't been inhaling neoliberal shit for so long that they actually believe in rainbow farts knows that corporations with power will try to get more and more of it until they destroy not only competition, consumers, and governments, and the economy, and finally capitalism itself. It's happened enough time in histories that only the severely over-optimistically delusional aren't worried. But there are so many very severely delusional people who want to believe in magic and Gigantosaurus rainbow farts. So what we got in the U.S. from this delusional faith in our own brand of Reagan/Thatcher neoliberal economics was a bunch of too big to fail companies who fucked up so badly they cratered the economy of the entire world in 2008. They didn't just fuck up the entire world while largely remaining unscathed. They unleashed a bitterness in the American public that still runs through the veins of almost every sentient adult. People don't remember where the bitterness came from, but where it came from was the realization in 2008 that people get screwed and corporations don't. But nothing happened to any of the corporations. So Jeff Bezos and his ilk just kept merrily crushing competition, creating monopolies, grabbing power, and silently screwing you over. Now let's look at how. It's been a very gradual process. Amazon started selling books online in 1995, a first mover in the online space. By 1999, it had patented a one-click ordering system. It used that patent to try to drive Barnes & Noble's website out of business. It wanted to ensure that no one else could sell products using similar easy-click or streamlined methods, even though they had already been using them. So Amazon actually succeeded in driving Barnes & Noble and many other booksellers basically out of business by muscling out competition. But it wasn't enough to go after the booksellers. Amazon also tried to patent having an affiliate program, and then went much further than that. I remember when Amazon tried to patent photographing an item for sale against a white or neutral background. In other words, Amazon tried to prevent anyone else from having photos of products on their internet store. As one commenter said, if Amazon could have figured out how to take out a patent on breathing, probably tried, we'd all be suffocated by now. So all these patent shenanigans made people furious and sparked the first Amazon boycott. So Bezos got huffy, and then he backed off. Amazon's patent abuse was so bad, though, that it sparked reform of the entire pathetic business patent system in effect at the time, which was another spectacular neoliberal failure. Thus began the Amazon and Bezos pattern that they are still using to this day. The pattern is they will try any blatantly outrageous and immoral tactic to prevent competition, in this case, literally trying to prevent anyone else from being able to engage in e-commerce. They will do that until people scream loud enough to get some attention to the problem. Then Amazon/Bezos will get huffy and defensive and lie about just being rainbow farters until they cave in if the public pressure keeps up. So let's recap. Step 1, commit a bad act or acts. Step 2, lie and lash out when confronted with evidence of bad acts. Step 3, admit lying and cave when confronted with continued pressure. After the patent debacle of the early 2000s, public criticism of Amazon monopolistic practices seemingly quieted down for a while. It wasn't until the late 2000s that the next controversy erupted, once again over books. Got into a big old fight with Hachette, which is a book publisher, and also with authors over book pricing. Basically, Amazon did not want anyone other than itself to have a say in book pricing. So it got furious if Hachette books were sold elsewhere for less. So having Amazon set book prices, obviously a problem for Hachette, book publisher, because book publishers rely on selling books to stay afloat. And it's obviously a problem for authors because authors rely on the income they get from selling books. But this business of price undercutting is at the core of Amazon's monopolistic practices. Now, I'm only, to be honest, going to go through a portion of the monopolistic practices because there's so many and so many things they did that had that effect. We really have to talk about things like sales taxes and other things to get into the full meat of it. But let's just talk about prices and say that Amazon wants to control prices everywhere. Not just on Amazon. It wants to decide if prices for things it sells, no matter what those things are, if they are higher or lower, and when. Obviously, setting prices to the maximum amount for profit for Amazon benefits Amazon. That does not mean it benefits anyone else. So Hachette caused a big stink about this. Others caused a big stink about it when it was applied to book pricing. And in one of the more absurd manifestations of this little feud, Amazon wouldn't allow Disney or Warner Brothers pre-sales of popular movies because the Hollywood companies had publishing arms. As is typical with Amazon, the tactic worked. Amazon was able to drastically reduce sales of Hachette books. It also didn't work because, as is typical with Amazon, they overplayed their hand and had to back off. The other major tactic Amazon uses is to weaponize how large it is. So Amazon will refuse to sell someone's products on Amazon, like they were doing with Hachette. Inevitably, given how large Amazon's market share is for online commerce, that cuts into a seller's sales. Now, to be clear, there are many other places to buy online. It is not necessary at all for consumers to shop at Amazon. But for sellers whose margins are not high, the hit in sales can be a big deterrent. And this practice of restricting access to Amazon.com works even against other Gigantosaurus rexes like Apple and Google. Amazon wouldn't let anyone sell Apple and Google products on Amazon.com because those products competed against Amazon products like Fire TV and Ring. So the dinosaurs fought with each other. Each restricted access to the other's products until, of course, they were all forced to back down and restore access to each other. Since Amazon wasn't able to annihilate competition from the big guys, it settled for making small business go kaput. That's one of its specialties. So it created a policy that only allows really large vendors of Apple products to sell them on Amazon, which ensures that small vendors with low overhead can't compete on price, which means that the prices charged on Amazon are cropped up so they can't be lowered by competition. But you have to give credit to Amazon because they use technology. They really are a leader in technology. And so they use technology to further their monopolistic and anti-competitive aims. So Amazon created an algorithm to predict whether or not, if they raised prices on their site, other retailers, like let's say Target.com, would raise them too. If the algorithm was correct, then Amazon kept the higher prices and everyone paid more. Everyone. If the algorithm guessed wrong, Amazon went back to the lower price. So it could constantly be raising prices to see which ones stuck. So the net result of that was consumers paid about $1 billion more in higher prices while the algorithm ran, which supposedly started in 2015 and ended in 2019. But the bottom line is that Amazon did not want to compete on price. Nobody rational can blame Amazon for not wanting to compete on price. The point is that it is both illegal and immoral to prevent competition on price and to control the prices that everybody pays regardless of where they buy from. Amazon figured out another way to keep consumers away from competitors by using Prime. Prime itself is a fairly standard type of merchant device, free shipping and some perks if you pay to be part of what is essentially a loyalty program. Cool, 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 cool. Except Amazon wasn't content to let a good idea work its magic. No, Amazon had to push it too far. They designed their websites so that people would accidentally sign up for Prime when they were just trying to buy a single product, and then not realize it until they got a bill for Prime. Then, when these people wanted to cancel, Amazon would unleash a cancellation process so difficult that you could write a Greek epic poem about it. Not kidding. Literally, employees at Amazon called the cancellation process the Iliad because it was as long as the Greek epic poem, the Iliad. There was something like 14 screens and 30 decision points to cancel. So the pattern comes into play again. Amazon gets called out by this, especially by people who are like, why won't Amazon let me cancel? Why am I signed up for Prime when I didn't sign up for Prime? And so on. So customers complain. Amazon got all huffy and claimed it wasn't doing anything but farting rainbows. Then it settled with the FTC for $2.5 billion. And it is supposed to be coughing up refunds to affected consumers this year. We'll see if that happens. And to be clear, this isn't simply a US issue. UK courts have allowed a £900 million lawsuit against Amazon to proceed. The lawsuit accuses Amazon of suppressing competition against its own branded products by using buy boxes and algorithms to keep other sellers' products harder to find and harder to buy. So that's the basic background, a long period of gradually escalating attempts to stifle competition that get more successful as time goes on, and Amazon gets to be more and more of a Gigantosaurus Rex. If effective action had been taken against Amazon in 2008 and they'd stopped their monopolistic practices, there probably wouldn't be any complaints today, but they didn't stop. They just kept grabbing for more and more because that is human nature as correctly proposed by capitalism. So in part 2, we'll explore the wonderful world of the current U.S. antitrust suits against Amazon, and we'll get into the really brutal assaults on you, me, and a whole bunch of other people.